Hello everyone, these are the 10 games that have just missed being on the top half of my top 100 games of all time. We are looking at 60 through to 51. Let's not dilly-dally, let's jump into the list. At number 60, I have played the sequel more recently, but Great Western Trail is a really sort of perfectly crunchy but interesting game to me. Now, if I had second edition, I'd probably put that on this list rather than the original, mostly because the little meeples then wear hats, and what's not to love about meeples wearing hats? But this game, it's on the edge for me of, they threw a lot of stuff in, but it kind of works, and normally I'd be a bit hesitant by this sort of game, and in fact I was before I played it, because you've got this hand management, you're deck building these cows, because you keep cows in your hand, that's the normal place for them. You're moving along this board, sort of stopping at locations, but you can then build locations, as can your opponents. There's different routes that you can go along it to maybe skip these buildings that your opponents, but maybe you're going through these cowboys over here. You've got different workers to recruit. It sounds a lot, and it is a lot for your first play, but actually by the end of that first play, it really makes sense, because it's like, right, if I get this type of worker from this market, that the price varies, so it's like, well, they're the same type of worker, but that one's 5 and this one's 6. Well, I'll take the cheaper one, it stops you getting it as well. That then increases maybe the amount your train can move on a track, or it just generally means you can build higher level buildings at a, well, not a reduced cost, but you can actually build them and stuff. And there's loads of little bits to it. You can win by trying to get the best cows from the market and then sort of going along this trail, selling cows. Go along the trail, sell cows. Or you can build lots of buildings and try and score points in different ways along it. There's lots going on. But Great Western Trail doesn't overload you, because you're kind of forced into doing some of everything or one thing in particular. So you're never having to fully think about everything all at once. You'll have the pleasant journey of taking some cows along the trail and selling them and doing something else, or just going for that. Really good. Like I say, it's that great balance of lots going on, lots of choices, different opportunities, but never overloading you. At least that's what I think. That's Great Western Trail. Number 59 is a completely different board game from the last, and this is a brilliant entry-level game, Kingdomino. Now, Kingdomino puts a great modern spin on dominoes, because instead of just numbers and like pips on a dice, like, you know, 1 matches to a 1, a 6 matches to a 6, that's great. Now we've got forest matches to forest, and water to water, and desert, but not desert, it's actually crops, but it looks like a desert, matches to desert, but that's actually crops. Anyway, you get this lovely landscape, this kingdom that you're building out. There's a few different things, like you only need to match one of the things next to the other. You're building your own territory, not sort of on a central thing where you're playing with the other players. And then there's the choice of how you get these tiles. And I love that. Basically, the tiles are revealed each round that are going to be available, and in turn order you pick. Now, the highest one is the lowest numbered tile, and in the order, because they're put in order. The higher the number, the more points it will probably score you than the lower ones. But the lower number you go on means the earlier you go in the next round. So maybe these tiles don't work for you. You grab the top one. You're then next next round. You're the first to pick. So there could be a really good tile that comes out. Maybe there's a really good tile this round, but it's right at the bottom. Is it worth having last choice in the next round? I really enjoy that mechanism. And it's super easy to teach, especially when the game's in front of you. It makes much more sense when you can see the tiles. It looks super shiny. It looks so much better than dominoes. It just sort of makes sense, and is a brilliant sort of entry-level game. That's Kingdomino. I don't think it's improved by Queendomino. Just saying. Number 58 is a game which I don't get to the table necessarily as often as I'd like, because it does need a decent-ish player count. You need at least sort of 4 or 5 people for Dixit. Now, this is a glorious game because the artwork is weird, wonderful, fantastic, beautiful, gorgeous, you name it, it's in there in surreal form. You might have a lovely castle scene, but then there's a hot air balloon floating and some sort of weird bubbles going on. The next one is an oversized anchor that's just attached to a cloud in some water or something like that. It's some of them make sense, some of them don't. There's loads of like basically art packs you can get, because the base game comes with a chunky deck of these cards, and then you can buy expansions that just add more cards. But what are you trying to do with these? That's probably quite important. If you don't know what Dixit is, one person is basically going to pick a card from their hand, make a word, noise or phrase. They're going to play that card, and then everyone around the table is going to try from their hand to pick a sort of a card that could mean that. Now, everyone is doing that in the hope for then they can pick the correct one, the original player's card, but they're also going to get points if other players mistakenly pick theirs. So maybe someone says boat, because they play a very watery card. It's got that anchor that I mentioned about, maybe. But someone else has played a card that's just a pirate on a desert island, and maybe everyone's like, well, they're clearly after a boat. And then points are scored depending on how many of the people pick the correct answer, and who picks the wrong answers. Those people get points for sort of basically deceiving them, sort of making them pick the wrong card. It's driven by glorious, glorious artwork. And it's a really fun game too. There is many versions of it. I think Dixit Odyssey is probably the best, just because it has a wider player count, and the board down the middle with the numbers around the edge just make the voting on who you think's the right card just that bit easier. Overall though, Dixit is phenomenal. My number 57 is a dice placement game that completely twisted my sort of thoughts on that genre. To me, I hate dice because dice seem to hate me, but in Rajas of the Ganges, it doesn't necessarily matter what you roll. You're always going to have choices. First of all, you're using your dice on these like worker placement spots. In some cases, you're using them for colour. So I've got a blue dice, I can use it on this to maybe get 2 orange dice. I can't remember if that's the exact conversion, but it's that sort of logic. Then you roll those orange dice and that was your turn, and you can do something again in a minute. Then the next one, maybe you're going over here somewhere and you're using a 4 rather than the colour of the dice to activate something. So all of the time you've got multiple ways to use the dice, but there's also the important thing that you can manipulate the dice via like a karma mechanism. Basically you build it up and that allows you to change the dice somewhat. And you also don't always find like a 6 is best. A lot of these sort of games where you roll dice, if you're rolling a 1 it's bad, if you're rolling a 6 it's great. In this, and I was worried about it, in this though, if you've got a 1, it can be extremely useful for you, because it could be activating that space that you really want to go to. Maybe you want to go 1 space down the river to get that bonus on the next river space. Maybe you want to be able to use just these sort of badly rolled dice to grab this tile to add to your player board. And it means that a good roll is subjective. It's not always a 6 is great. And it just meant, okay, I love worker placement, but I'm worried about the dice. I like tile placement, but again, I've got to get the right dice to do that. There's manipulation, there's all of that good stuff. There's a way to unlock an extra worker that allows you to then go here and use more dice in a round before your the round is up. It's a really great use of dice in worker placement, and that is Rajas of the Ganges. My number 56 is a CMON game, cool minis or not, that's probably what they were called at the time, and this is Blood Rage. This combines dudes on the map, where you get these amazing figures, just standard warriors. Then you get these monsters that you can unlock via card drafting. Now, I love a bit of drafting, and in this it really drives the experience because you are effectively drafting cards that are going to make your strategy. Maybe you're drafting this monster because when you put it down, it's just going to crush one of the enemy dudes. Maybe you're drafting this other card because when a battle happens, if your people die, you're getting points for it. That's a pretty neat way. Maybe you're taking this card and you're pushing yourself up these different tracks that are going to score you points or allow you just to do more stuff. There's also a whole bit on the map where you've got dudes on the map and you're trying to control these areas to then, after you've done the drafting, during that round, sort of win that battle or just conquer that area and get its bonus. Bits of the map are getting destroyed, so if your people are in that space at the end of the round, it's going to blow up as that's the indicated space. But you know that going into it, so you've left them there on purpose. Or maybe you just really wanted to win that battle to get that bonus, and they were just, well, cannon fodder for you. It's a really interesting game that combines that dudes on the map with that card drafting, and it's a really great game that I'm going to have to get back to the table very soon. My number 55 is a game that I can see going higher. It's rated number 1 on Board Game Geek, and that is Brass Birmingham. Now, this is the only Brass game I've played, but now I've played it, I'm happy with that. I don't need to try a different version, in my opinion, mostly because I don't need to buy another very similar game when I'm very happy with this one. I really like this in this game where there's 2 waves of the game. It's done it in a few different games, like maybe like Blue Lagoon and stuff, where there's one round or one half of the game and then it sort of semi-resets, and that happens in Brass Birmingham. You're building out these routes linking up these sort of barges with the different cities. You're building different things at these cities, like a coal mine, an iron mine, and well, beer barrel places and everything. You're doing all of that, which is affecting the what's available in the market to build and different things like that. And then halfway through the game, all of those barges are removed, any of the tier 1 stuff removed. So if you've not upgraded it to a tier 2, well, that's your own fault. The tier 2s will and above will stay though. And then all of a sudden you're having to build on these train track routes to again link things up. And they'll score again if they've remained on the board. So it's a very interesting thing, and one of the quirkiest but coolest things in this is that you can take debt to actually get a load of money, and if you take that at the right time, it feels, or the wrong time, it's like, oh, I've lost so much. But if you take it at the right time, you're like, oh, I only come down to here on sort of the income, which means I'm not losing that much. I can quite quickly make this loan worth my while to build this thing. And it's got a great thing where turn order of whoever's spent the most, it sort of jiggles you around based on what you've spent. So it sort of, it's a really interesting start player mechanic or turn order mechanic. And it's got this lovely network route building. Now it's a bit confusing with this coal, and coal has to be brought via things, whereas iron can just be from anywhere, and this is your network versus the network of where you're getting beer from and stuff. It's a little confusing trying to teach this game, and I think that drags it down a bit. But when this gets back to the table again soon, I could see it probably jumping a little bit higher up the list. I've just not been able to because it is a big thinky game. But that is Brass Birmingham, fantastic game, and it's clearly supported by Board Game Geek as it's currently the #1 there. My number 54, if you've guessed anything from this list, is I do like a little bit of tile placement, and to me, one of the best looking and most beautiful themes of tile placement is Tang Gardens. I absolutely love the way they've brought this sort of theme into it. Yeah, it's not overly thematic with the pagodas, the bridges and stuff, but I absolutely just love this theme. From being numerous times being able to go to Asia and see locations like this garden, like the one that I went to in Shanghai, it was absolutely fantastic. And being able to create one of these in a game, yeah, it's got some slight issues of different player counts. It feels really sort of like, okay, you've done that, I'm going to refresh. You do that, I'm going to refresh the tile stacks and stuff. It's, yeah, there is that, but you create this fantastically vivid, lovely map with bits of pond, bits of walkway. Then you're putting these pagodas and bridges and people, these characters in, and it's like this character wants to see loads of flowers in the direction they're looking. The next person doesn't want to see anyone in their line of view, but then someone else later on can try and put someone in that maybe a pagoda that you can see, because it's going to lose you a little bit of the points, but maybe they want to see a certain other player or not one of these other characters because they're like a rival or something. It's just a really enjoyable one where these characters have powers, but you get rid of that power as you put them into the garden. Then you get someone new. That could be good. It could be just you were trying to score those points, and you get this lovely, lovely garden. And I'm really happy that I'm going to have the special edition big box thing, hopefully coming this year. That is Tang Gardens. Stunning, beautiful game, and it's good gameplay too. My number 53 is a rondel game, and often I find these look a little boring and play kind of okay. Well, Iki, which is actually there on the shelf, is a really great example of a great looking game, and one that has loads of player choices as you're going around what is otherwise just a very small circle market, kind of up and down the different sides. Now, what makes Iki amazing, and I'm really excited for the expansion coming later this year, so that might bump it up, is that you go to a location and it's got like a basic sort of thing that you can do. Like you're placing almost your worker there and you're getting a worker placement thing back. Like maybe trade one resource for some other, maybe spend some money to get some fish token, and there that's points and stuff like that. But then as the game goes on, you're going to recruit these sort of people and put them into the shops behind those actions. So when you stop there, not only can you do the normal action, you can then do one of the people's in the shops action as well. The twist is, if you're doing an opponent's one, it basically levels their character up, and they can actually, you can push them up so much that basically that character retires and gives them a brilliant benefit. But even just pushing them up the track a little bit means when the round ends, everyone gets sort of like an income from their workers. So maybe instead of 1 gold, they're getting 1 gold and a rice sack, which is perfect because you need some rice to be able to feed these people and different things like that. So this board sort of grows, sort of has like a wave of, there's loads of people, new people, then some of them have left, so the worker place, the spots around this rondel, maybe these ones aren't as good, but then more people are placed and then they retire, and there's this nice ebb and flow of some. This is a really great worker placement, I call it a worker placement spot, but rondel place to stop. There's a great bit of bidding at the start of the round to basically go, I'm going to be moving 4 spaces. Then someone else can go and go, well, I'm going to be moving 3 spaces, but I'm going to be going before you. And then someone can come in and go, I am moving basically any number of spaces I want, but I'm not getting another benefit, like my income that round. And it's just so many different bits where you're trying to One player's going to go for these fish, another person's going to go for the pipes and tobacco, someone's going to be just putting out as many people as they can, someone else is going to be going for those buildings that you can build that are you need the wood for, which is normally quite hard to get hold of unless you're really going for it. It's, like I say, it's a stunning game to look at, and it really does make the rondel interesting, because it's not just stop here, oh it's that same action again. Yeah, that action's always going to be there, but the worker behind it is going to change things up, make it a better or worse location for you. It might make it worse for you, or almost worse for you, but super for one of your opponents. Really do like Iki. My number 52 is a big game, and that is Big City 20th Anniversary Jumbo Edition. And believe me, I've not played the original, but compared to it, it certainly is bigger and jumboer, because you have these chunky, I'm assuming sort of resiny plastic, I think it's like a resin, buildings that you're putting down onto this map. The way it works is you've got a hand of these deed cards, effectively. Maybe this one is 11, this one's 12, then you've got 33 and stuff like that. Now, to place a 1x1 building, you can just play one of those cards on your turn. You put maybe just a small little residence building down. Now, that's going to score you, if it's around the edge, some points. Whereas if you put down one of the office buildings, like the business buildings, 1x1, that's going to try and score if it's in the centre of the city. Now, what makes it interesting is if I've got the 11 and 12, I can play both of those and put a 2x1 building down. Now, that doesn't sound too good with just those two building types, but certainly with the expansion, as the game goes on, you'll at some point unlock the ability to add loads of new buildings, such as banks, cinemas. There's even like a monorail that goes along, not a monorail, sorry, a tram that goes between the tiled placement buildings and stuff. There's bad stuff that you don't want to build next to, like a factory that's maybe going to screw people over and make deed cards worthless. And it's a really interesting thing of, well, I've got these cards. Well, at the moment, that board's not in play, so it's kind of useless. But when it does come into play, it's going to be really good. And then someone else is like, well, I've got this park. If I build a residence next to this park, it'll get more points. And there's a really intricate system of like, this needs to be built next to so many residences. This needs to be built between a residence and one of the office buildings of any size. But it will score bonus points if it's also next to a park. And here's the city hall. When you build that, then that's when you can build all these other different types. And it's a great system where at the end of the round you basically have to offer cards to your opponents. So it really does work with more players. Like 3 or 4 is perfect for this because there's a lot going on and offering. Could you either offer face up or face down these cards? Why would you ever offer them face up? You then get quicker choice when it comes to actually picking from the other players. Whereas if it's face down, your card could be bad, but you will be taking last or potentially last. So you might even have to take that card back. It's a really interesting way of trading and keeping the sort of game flying. It means it's hard to hold on to good cards for too long unless you've always got something else you can offer people. But maybe that's what they are wanting. And it creates a wonderful big city at the end of the game that's just cool to sort of look down the streets between the houses, the different building types. It's a stunning looking game and a really good one, again, for like 3 or 4 players. And last but not least is one of my go-to quick bluffing games, and that is Skull. If you've got sort of 10 minutes that you need to fill, you're going somewhere, you just want to throw a game in your bag, Skull is a great game because it's literally like coasters almost and like a little sort of extra thing that you need to flip because it's first to 2 points. On your turn, you've got these 4 tiles in front of you. One is a skull, the other 3 are roses. There's different artwork on different, so one might have like a thistle and the thistle plants and stuff, a skull and some thistle plants, sorry, and different things like that. But basically it's a skull and 3 roses. You put one of those down, you know what it is. Go around the table, everyone puts one down. Then the next player goes, all right, I'll put one down. The next player gets a choice, put another tile down or say a number. That number is how many tiles, starting with their own, they think they can turn over without finding a skull. You do that, you score a point, and it's first to 2. So it's quite easy to very quickly finish this game. But there's then that bluffing. Well, I've put a skull down. But if I say 3, people are going to think I'm confident of turning my one over. They can't add tiles now. They have to either drop out or up their bid. So it gets really interesting as you're really bluffing, like, right, this isn't a skull. I'm happy to say 4 of these tiles I could turn over. And then they go, well, 5. And you go, all right, I'm dropping out. Everyone else has dropped out. And they're like, but you were so confident I can turn yours over. It's a skull. And if you turn over a skull, you lose one of your tiles at random. You might even lose your own skull. If you lose all your tiles, you're out. But I've very, very rarely seen that. You'd have to be extremely unlucky or just generally bad to do that. Normally, by the time someone's down to only sort of 1, maybe 2 tokens, someone else is winning the game, and then you're getting your tiles back and you're going for another round. It's a super quick bluffing game that's just, it can be played wherever. You'd hardly need any table space, and you need 30 seconds to teach it. And that wraps up the top half of my the bottom half, sorry, of my top 100 games. That has been 100 through to 51. So next time we will be in the better half of the games, if you will. But so far, we've had some fantastic games. Let me know though what games from that I've said today or in previous lists, what should have been in the top 50 and what shouldn't have even been on the list. Let me know in the comment section below. Subscribe for the rest of the top 100 and other stuff on the channel as well, of course. Until next time, have a great day gaming.